Welcome to America's Top Rebbetzins. In the merit of this class, may Hashem watch over all the Jewish people and give enormous strength to the IDF soldiers, including David Aryeh ben Haya Rivka, David ben Efrat, David ben Elan, and David ben Rivka Ravital. Please click on the subscribe button to subscribe to us on the America's Top Rebbetzins YouTube page, or click follow to follow us on your podcasting app so that you're the first to know when an inspiring new episode is posted. Today, I am happy to welcome Rebbetzin Tehilla Birnbaum to our podcast. Rebbetzin Tehilla is a Rebbetzin of the Seed Shul in Edgware, England. She is also a successful counselor who has been in private practice since 2015. She holds a diploma in marriage and family therapy and is a member of the British Association of Counseling and Psychotherapy. Rebbetzin Tehilla specializes in couples therapy and enjoys facilitating better communications in families. Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us more about yourself and what you do.
Hi, firstly, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it and I feel very honored.
My pleasure.
I first trained as a life coach and did that for a few years and really enjoyed it. But then I decided that I wanted to go a little bit deeper. And so trained as a marriage and family therapist. And I've subsequently taken more trainings and I specialize in couples therapy, but I also love to see individuals and I very often see parents and children together, which I absolutely love facilitating communication between them. What do I do? I feel like one of the things I do is I help people understand themselves in a deeper way, something that is not always encouraged in our systems.
True.
And very often we get to a stage where we need to make our own decisions and we don't know ourselves very well. So that's one of the things that I definitely work on with my clients. And the other thing is that I work on communication with my clients because that's also something that I feel the older you get, the more you need.
So true.
Of course, I am a therapist, but more importantly, I'm a mom and I'm a wife and I'm a Rebbetzin with my husband, who's the Rav of the Seed Shul. We've been here, this is our 10th year in England.
Wow.
So we go to shul, we host members, a lot of pastoral care, and we have a lovely community, and I really enjoy our work. Just a little bit on the therapeutic side, very often I start working with an individual. They come in for individual therapy, but I actually realize that there's a lack of communication between her and her husband, which is very often the issue kind of like the bigger issue around the stuff that she brings into the room. So I start off by working individually, but actually then bring him in as long as they both consent and we do couple work as well. And I feel like you're giving someone not only a self, but then you're also hopefully helping them build on their marriage, which then flows downwards to everyone else. So yeah, I really feel blessed to be doing what I do.
I really love that because I totally agree with you. Communication is key to everything. If you're thinking something or feeling something and you're getting frustrated because the other person doesn't know, how can they know unless you express yourself, unless you tell them, unless you communicate with them? Communication is really the key to most things in marriage and relationships between parents and children. It's really amazing.
Yeah, 100%. And I am quite integrative. So I use kind of a few modalities. But one of the main ways I work is systemically, which basically looks at the different people in the family system and basically shows the different ways that everyone interacts with each other and then how that affects you as an individual. And by that, you can very often look at the family system and see kind of what's triggering you, who's triggering you, and then work on those relationships. And it's very beautiful work. And obviously the system kind of goes higher more than just your immediate family, but even to the higher family. So yes, definitely everything and everyone affects everything and everyone. So that's the beauty of being human, isn't it?
It's so true. It's really, really true. And I also liked what you said earlier because it's going to pertain to our topic that we're talking about today. You help people get to know themselves and get to understand themselves. And this is very important because, as both a Rebbetzin and a successful therapist, I was very happy when you told me that a topic that is near and dear to your heart is wellness with a Jewish twist. So, today we're going to be talking about a Torah approach to physical, mental, and spiritual well being, which is really all about understanding yourself and tending to yourself. And it's going to be an interesting take on today's focus on health and wellness because I fully believe that we are in an age of healing where people are delving into different modalities with the purpose of healing their mind, body, and spirit. And this is what I call well-rounded healing because it's not an obsession with one particular area of ourselves, and instead it incorporates multiple aspects of our humanity. So let's get right into it. So why is it important for us, especially as women, to make sure that we take care of our physical, mental, and spiritual health? Why is it important to invest our time specifically on this type of care?
Right. So obviously it's so important, but the question is why? So what we called as Jewish women akeret habayit. Have you ever heard that? If you translate it in English, it sounds a little bit interesting. So like the mainstay of the home. What does that actually mean? But if you take the word akeret habayit, akeret, obviously, in the Jewish language, we are very into roots. And very often you could take one word and when you twist it around or add different things onto it, it becomes something totally different. So when you look at the word akeret, one of the words you can derive from there is ikar, right? The essence, so to speak. And the other word that comes from there is la'akar, which means to uproot. And I really believe, and that means our job is not so easy, but we have the power to do either. We can either be the essence of the home, we can bring joy and positivity and health and well-being and good relationships, or we can actually uproot lots of things in the home. And very often when I do see my clients, you see that the mother takes a focal role in what's going on in the home. So because of that, we need to make sure that we're doing okay. We need to make sure that we are in a good place. We are upholding everything, hopefully. And if we're not in a good place, then no one else will be.
True.
Okay. So that is one of the main reasons. The other reason is that I am going to introduce you to a concept. You kind of learn concepts and then you hold on to them, and that becomes like kind of comes who you are really. So many years ago, I kind of, someone introduced me that we have four basic worlds, okay? Emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual, okay? And when we are feeling down, we have to check those worlds because very often we're going to be depleted in one of them.
True.
So the more you're keeping on top of your well-being and the more you're kind of, checking in on those, the better you're gonna be in all the other areas too,
That makes a lot of
right?
sense.
Now,
Yeah.
one of the interesting things is that, very often, and I'm not gonna lie, I do love shopping, but we'll say like, okay, I'm feeling so rubbish, I'm gonna go shop. But then we go shop, which is a physical world. But actually, if we really look deeper, it's probably our emotional world that's empty. Could even be our spiritual world that's empty.
Right.
So the reason why we need to keep on top of all these different things in our lives is to make sure that we just feel good, to make sure that we're in the best place possible. And based on those two things, I think the next thing, which is most important, is that let's be honest, we are models to our children. We're role modeling,
Yes.
right? Everything that they see, they will copy,
Yes.
okay, including the good, including the bad. And that's not always so fun when you sometimes recognize things that your children are doing that you've done. But in a positive sense, when you can see that they're taking, the things that you have given them in the positive, then that's very, you know,
Rewarding.
yeah, rewarding is the right word. And I still remember, living in Israel. I lived in Eretz Israel for 10 years, and we lived on the fourth floor. And obviously, Baruch Hashem, we had a lift. And you'd get there with all your kids. We didn't have a car from the park, sweaty. And I'd get to the bottom of the building. And when the lift was there and you didn't have to wait for the lift, I'd just go, oh, Baruch Hashem, the lift is here. I realized what I was saying. I think I was just so thankful. And one day I walked in, my kid ran ahead of me and they were like, oh, Baruch Hashem, the lift is here. So I was like, see, look, they're copying that. They're obviously copying everything else as well. But that was obviously a very sweet moment where I'd given them, emunah and positivity. So yeah, so it's so important that we're able to give them, we're able to role model how they're meant to be in the rest of their life.
It's so true. I love the way that you said it because they really, really do copy us, more than we think that they copy us. They look at us, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like for better or for worse. They're copying us, which is why we're really talking about this today. We're really going to dive deep into some of these areas that we're talking about, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical, and we're really going to learn how to take good care of ourselves. Because you're right, what comes from us trickles on to them, trickles on to our kids, to our husbands, to our friends, to other people around us. So now that we understand the overall importance of taking care of ourselves, let's explore each of these three aspects in depth. So first of all, I want us to start with the Torah approach to physical health. What does it look like to take care of your physical body specifically through the lens of Torah?
Okay. So what does it look like, or why do we need to?
Maybe both.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with why we need to,
Okay.
right? And this is also a very, this is also a concept that I learned probably in my seminary year, which really takes us into the rest of, into the rest of our lives, which is, am I a guf or am I a neshama?
Right.
I don't know. We talk about neshamas and, but look at me. When I'm on the screen right now, I am very, very physical.
Yes.
Okay. So the answer is, as we know, we're both.
Right. And so
Okay.
the question
But
is
the
just want to
way,
rephrase, am I a body or am I a soul? Just for people who don't understand.
yeah.
Am I a
Oh,
body or my
sorry.
soul?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm sorry. Yeah. Am I a guf? Am I a body or am I a neshama? Am I a soul?
Yes.
Right. So the truth is that we're both.
Yes.
And one of the concepts I was saying I learned was that our body is really a vessel for our soul. The soul without a body is not something that can be on this world, right? And it can't do mitzvot. It can't fulfill the commandments of God, right?
Yeah.
So if I am both, and God put me in this world as a very physical being, it means that He needs me to look after my body. Because in order to fulfill spiritual requirements, I need a body,
True.
right?
Hmm.
So that is why we need to look after our body. The Rambam's very into it. He has, a whole sefer on looking after ourselves. And essentially, right, it affects everything. And if you look, the first thing we do when we wake up in the morning is say, Modeh, right? Thank you, Hashem, for giving me my body back so I can continue to serve you, right? How do we do this? Okay, so on a personal note, I know that for me, physical activity is a lifeline, right? Everyone knows what they need. I've learned that I basically have to do some kind of physical activity every single day. Now, before I, kind of get onto that, I'll say that obviously because we're a body, that means we need to take care of ourselves hygienically, make sure that we look decent because at the end of the day, we're meant to be Kiddush Hashem, which means, to kind of like give God a good name, right? So we need to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies in general. And that obviously, if we want to be in this world for as long as we possibly can, to maintain our health. And how can we do that? So again, for me, obviously, physical activity is essential. It's essential to my physical well-being, it's essential to my mental well-being, essential to my spiritual well-being. I genuinely believe it. So I think it's about probably seven years ago, maybe even longer, I got into jogging.
Wow.
Yeah. And I can't say I'm a half marathon, jogger, runner, or anything like that. But, I definitely kind of try to get out there most days, either it's a walk or a jog. And since then, it's like really my lifeline as well as doing other things. And I just feel like it keeps me going, And very often people say to me, I'm so tired. And I'm like, do exercise. They're like, how can I do exercise if I'm tired? I'm like, try it. Exercise gives you energy, you know? So you have to know yourself, but I do think that looking after yourself in that capacity is so important. And it's not encouraged so much in the religious circles, but there's so much that we can do, whether it's at home, whether it's, outside in the community, lots of classes and stuff like that. But for me, It's definitely my lifeline.
I really like that. I identify that. So I don't jog. I'm not a jogger or a runner, but I so admire people who are. I'm just looking at them. Like just running was never in me, but I'm a long distance walker and I'm also a mountain climber. I
Oh,
love
love it.
climbing mountains. I can't even describe it. I lo love it so much.
Oh my gosh. Vera, I'm telling you, we need to get together because more than just, people say to me, oh, do you have a running machine at home? Like that doesn't do it for me.
Right.
Does not. I prefer to go for a 5K,
Outside.
in
Hmm.
just go outside, and near us we have actually a little farm with like horses, and it's so beautiful, and you
Beautiful.
just like take it all in, and like just see Hashem in the world and listen to the rustle of the trees and the chirping of the birds, and it's just amazing. So it happens to be I can walk for hours and hours and hours. I
Yes.
can't run for hours and hours. But yeah, it's just amazing. And mountains, yeah, we love mountains. I don't
It's
think
so
the
good.
ones in England are like what you have there, but yeah.
It's so good. And I do want to put in a couple of words about exercise because I do agree with you. Sometimes if you're tired and you just don't want to, and believe me, I really understand that. Sometimes if you just push yourself just a little bit, you'll be so happy that you did because the
Yeah,
rewards, it really does clear your mind. At least it does for me. And especially if you're doing something outside, even if you're gardening, and gardening could even be a physical activity, whether you're digging for
yes.
plants or mowing the lawn, just to get that fresh air and just to get that your mind away from the screen, your mind away from your problems. Just it's for to clear your mind. At least that's what it does for me.
100%. And if you actually look scientifically, it's proven that there's a chemical released in the brain
Yes.
that, that actually creates happy hormones that
Yes.
really gives you, a good feeling. And one of the things is that with a lot of clients who are dealing with high levels of anxiety or whatever it is, you very often will say to them, just, one of the things you need to do is just do some kind of physical exercise, whether it's running up and down the stairs, whether it's a walk outside, whether it's a little workout or whatever it is. But, that's one of the things that people are telling you now to do in order to create a feeling of well-being. So, you know,
Yes, it's very, very
it's
true.
definitely proven.
It's very true. And also, like, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the other side of this. In our culture, people are very, very obsessed with physicality. Also, I really, I definitely think we need to address this because sometimes it's all about, you know, look at, I lost, I don't know, X amount of pounds, or I'm in a calorie deficit, or to an extreme. I'm not saying that, people definitely need to do what they
100%.
need to do to lose weight, but I'm talking about to an extreme. I'm talking about to a point where it's not healthy. That's what I'm trying to say. So I just don't want anybody to get overly obsessed with the physical.
100%. And I think you need to look into yourself and think, why am I doing this? If it's coming from a place of needing to lose weight, yeah, it should come from a place of actually giving you a good feeling. And it's more about that. And that is something that I'd say, being this guf and this neshama, being this body and this soul, I think very often, as you say, we get too involved with our body.
Yes.
And not only that, it's usually not in a positive sense. It's usually coming from a place of, as you say, not liking the way you look or not feeling comfortable in your own skin. And that is something that we need to internalize. And I speak to myself as well as, the belief that Hashem gave us, God gave us everything that we need. That means the family we need, the body we need, the spiritual, genes that we need, everything, the intellectual capacity. We've been given a certain set of genetics in all the different senses of the word that is ours. And, we're going to need to make peace with that and be thankful for that. But, at the same time as looking after ourselves, hygiene and making sure that we're okay, you're right, can absolutely become obsessive, you
Right.
know?
It's totally, and I agree. And just to that point, before we move on to the next aspect, just to that point, I love what you said about the body being the vessel for the soul, and that's why we're looking after our body. We're not looking after our
Yeah,
body to fit like a certain model of physique. We're not, looking to be a certain size or a certain weight. We're looking after our body, taking care of our body, physically, and making sure we're eating properly and we're sleeping properly. We're having good physical hygiene so that
yeah,
our body can be the best vessel for our soul. Because if we're sick, it really does compromise in our spiritual activity, our mental activity, our emotional activity. It really, really does. And I also want to emphasize, like, people shouldn't compare what one person's body looks like. That's like you said, every single person is unique, and we shouldn't compare. Like, this person has this body, why don't I have it? It's not about why don't I have it. It's about this is the body that I have, and I'm taking the best care that I can of the body that I have that's made for me, uniquely for me. So I just also wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, and you're right. Listen, we live in a world, a social media world where
Yes.
everyone's constantly posting, I mean, photos of themselves which aren't even real because there's so many filters on, but there's an obsession with the physicality.
Yes.
And there's also it's also giving us a place to actually hide behind,
Yes.
if I look the part, as you say, if I've, got all the stuff done to myself or have the perfect home, then clearly I am happy, which is kind of the pursuit that people have. Even though I'm not sure happiness is a pursuit, because let's be honest, what does it mean? It's kind of not really quantifiable. So I think we must be looking for something else, which someone actually said to me, they said, maybe we're not looking for happiness, we're looking for peace, serenity, tranquility. And you're right. With that, very often comes a sense of happiness. But yeah, we live in a very physical world, and everyone's trying to prove themselves by proving that their physicality is the best. And who says that that's something that you know that we go by? Like, why are people judging people based on how they look or where they live? Just doesn't really make sense, does it?
100%. 100%. And so now
Mhm.
let's dive into the Torah approach to the mental well-being. Now we're going to take a look at the mental aspect because so many people struggle with their mental health, depression, anxiety, OCD. You have a bird's eye view. You personally have a bird's eye view of these challenges as a therapist, like with all these mental struggles that people have. And they're genuine struggles and they're really, really hard to overcome. Like, I really just want to put it out there. People really do struggle and it's a real thing. The
Mhm.
struggle is real. So, how can people take charge of their mental health, specifically using a Torah approach?
Right. So I really believe that the struggle of today is with our mental well-being.
Yes.
If you look at all the other worlds that we have, going back to our worlds, physically, I can't say everyone is, but we are physically very comfortable. Intellectually, we have access to so much knowledge,
Yeah.
right, in different languages. Um, and spiritually, even spiritually, yes, there is major anti-Semitism. It's awful what's going on.
Yes.
But saying that, Baruch Hashem, as for now, we are being looked after. We can live freely as Jews in most of the countries that we live in. But mentally, people are really, really struggling.
Yeah.
So, I'd say don't quote me, but I think if you'd ask a lot of people, genuinely, like the struggle of today is with our mental well-being. It
I
feels like
totally agree.
Hashem's given us that to deal with.
Hmm.
Um, so, if you look at statistics, just in the UK, they say 1 in 4 struggle with mental health. And actually, something that I didn't, tell you to introduce me with is I actually work for an organization called JTeen. It's run by my brother-in-law, Yaakov Bar. You can look it up afterwards. And it's a text helpline for teens. And it's an unbelievable helpline. And I supervise on the helpline one night a week. And even I am surprised by the type of calls that are coming in, the things that kids are struggling with, so it's unbelievable that they have somewhere to turn, a place that they can speak, a place that they can speak through. But it's really frightening to see what kids, young kids, 14, 15, 16, 12 even, are dealing with. They're really, really struggling with their well-being. And they're very complex in their emotional, well-being. So obviously that's what we're there for. But one of the things that I started saying many years ago is Igerat Ramban. It's a letter of the Ramban. And he speaks a lot about, speaking gently and working on anger. And the quieter you become, the more gentle you become. I feel like the more you can focus on what's around you. And I believe that thoughts can be replaced. So if you look at a jar and it's filled with chocolate chip cookies, then there's no space for the peanut butter cookies. But if you empty half of that jar, then there's space for chocolate chip cookies and peanut butter cookies, right? So too with our thoughts. the more negative thoughts we have, the more negatively we think, there's no space for positivity. There's no space for positive thinking, right? And that's what a lot of us are working with, these very negative, you know, thoughts that weigh people down.
Yep.
That's very often where the depression comes in or the high levels of anxiety. Obviously, there's many other mental health disorders, you know, and everyone's very slightly different, but a lot of them do stem from heavy thoughts, unpleasant thoughts, negative thoughts. So, you know, one of the things that I feel that we can do is work on our emunah, work on our faith, work on ayin tova, a, you know, a good eye, because I definitely think as women, you know, maybe I'm giving too much away, but as women, we have a tsar ayin, we have a very narrow eye. We tend to like, you know, focus on the negativity and focus right in, as opposed to, you know, looking at the positive around us. So the more we look at the world in a positive sense, the more we believe that what we have is what we're meant to have, right? Then hopefully, the more we fill ourselves with these thoughts, the less space there will be in our lives to have negative thinking, to have negative thoughts.
It's definitely it's for sure. It's very interesting that you mentioned that because the positive thoughts go in line with gratitude. You know, like you were talking about,
Mhm.
you know, with your kids, that where the elevator was at the bottom floor when you arrived, you know, in your building where you lived in Israel.
Yeah.
So it's along those lines. It's very interesting because I was listening this morning to a podcast by Gedalia Fenster. Some
Oh,
people might
yes.
have
He's
heard.
meant to be excellent.
He's really, really amazing. And he was talking about exactly this. You know, people who have problems in their lives, people who are struggling. And like you said, a lot of the struggle is mental. Really, it's not always physical. It's a lot of the struggle is mental. You know, people who
Yeah.
are struggling, he encourages people to look at everything with gratitude. The moment you take out the negative and stop thinking about the problem and start turning into gratitude, look at the positive points of the issue, of the circumstance, of the person, and so the negative issue, like it starts to change immediately, you know, because your thinking starts to get more clear when you're thinking in a positive way versus in a negative way.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, I didn't want to write too much down because this is meant to be a conversation, but I really felt like this quote was something that I felt like should be shared. And I think mostly people should know who Viktor Frankl is. He
Yes.
was a very, you know, famous therapist. And he survived the Holocaust. And he said this. He said there was one thing they could never take away from their prisoners, and that was the freedom to decide how to respond. And very often, the decision that they had was not necessarily what they could do, but how they could think about it and how they could experience what they were going through. Because they weren't necessarily given the opportunity to actually respond in a way that they would want to,
Right.
right? And I think that's very powerful. You know, that's very often what we're left with. We're going through experiences anyway. How are we going to respond to that? That's where our free will, you know, comes in. And I think the hardest part with mental well-being is that it's an invisible struggle. You know, God
Yes.
forbid someone has a physical disability. Very often you could see, you know, the color of their skin, you know, maybe, you know, certain things you can see, or you can even take a blood test and you can say, oh, look, it's, you know, in the blood test, it's showing mental health is not something that you can actually see. It's an invisible struggle. And that's what makes it so much more difficult, both to the outside world and even to oneself. I think very often people have this feeling of like, what is wrong with me? You know, I kind of, I'm feeling down. I'm feeling, you know, not great about myself. I'm not able to function, but like, I can't express that properly and you can't really see it. You know, it's just kind of my word against yours. So that makes the struggle even more difficult. And that's why, you know, as therapists, we can facilitate someone's well-being, but essentially it's going to be up to the person themselves to have to, you know, do the work and know what works for them, really.
It's
You
very, very
know?
true. It's very true. And I like that because I was actually thinking about this morning. It's so interesting that we're talking today because all these thoughts I was having this morning. Um,
Mm,
it's the way that we process the world, and nobody can process the world for you except for you. You know,
yeah.
nobody can fix you, so to speak, you know, except for you. And we don't need to be fixed. It's not the right word to use, but like nobody can change your mindset except for you.
Yeah.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. And of course, then I think people should use life coaches and therapists. I think they're very, very helpful because these people can help you in changing your mindset. They can't change it for you, but they can help you in changing it. And it's so
Yeah,
interesting because you could have the same situation, the same exact situation, and it could be honestly a terrible circumstances. And you could have two people going through the exact same situation. One person, listen, it's a bad situation, but the way they look at it, the way they perceive it, when they try to find the good points, or even if they're just grateful, for anything in that situation, even if it's just a learning experience and they're thankful for the lessons that they've learned out of this difficult situation, they come out in a much
yeah,
different way than the second person who is just forget it, like down in the dumps. I give up. This is horrible victim mentality mindset.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. And you very often see that, obviously everyone's situation is, slightly different. Everyone's got their own set of experiences and everything like that. But you do very often see people going through such similar experiences and just coming out in a totally different way. And that's
Yes.
so often just based on the way that they deal with it. I mean, we can't not bring up the hostages now,
Right.
right?
Right.
And, I think maybe as a mother myself, I'm a little bit like obsessed with just watching their release.
Yes.
It's like literally every day, will it happen, will it not? And then watching them come out and being paraded and then,
It's so emotional.
transferred, and like just brings up so many emotions. But one of the things that I have been blown away by is their resilience, is
Yes.
their unbelievable resilience. And no one's going to know exactly what their struggles are going to be. And we're a nation in kind of PTSD post, October the 7th. There is
Yes.
so much going on, so much has happened for so many people, so much grief, so much loss. So we obviously don't know. But when you look at those women, they are just so empowering. It makes me feel like, wow, like who else is like us? Who else is like women?
Right.
Because I believe that women have an immense power. And who else is like the Jewish nation? Like it just blows me away. And I almost like wait to hear from them how they manage to survive,
Yes.
how they manage to walk across those stages and smile. How did you do it? I want the strength that you have. And
Yes.
someone actually was going to interview me and she wanted to know who my role model was right now. And I actually said to her, I can't say one person that say I have many role models in my life. But I feel like I'm at a stage right now where I'm kind of like opening myself up and saying, what can I learn from all the individuals around me? Because there are so many amazing human beings out there,
Yes.
each with their own, inspirational factor. And it's beautiful to kind of be open like that and look around and say, how can I learn from her? How can I learn from her? And there's so much to learn from so many different people. Um, yeah, and the mothers of hostages blow me away too. Just, I would love one day to be able to have a conversation with them and just hear from them how they've managed that because, wow, they probably have a lot to share with us.
It's beautiful. And I noticed the exact same things that you noticed about the hostages and about their mothers, about their families. Like that strength, that resilience, like how? Like none of us who haven't experienced that, we can't answer that question. You're right. It's really coming from that place of somebody who went through it and was so resilient. And I know that at least from what I can tell for Rachel Goldberg Pollen, like she used a lot of amuna.
Yes.
She had a tremendous,
Mm.
tremendous amount of faith from the beginning, like from October 7th.
Totally, totally, 100%. And we are so blessed that we have these four worlds, this spiritual element. I genuinely don't know how people do it without the spiritual healing, without the spiritual element, the emuna, um, you know, and that's something I'll come to tell you about in the next question, which I think you're
I was
getting
just
to
going to ask you.
soon.
It's exactly what I was just going to ask you because, last but not least, of course, we have to talk about the spiritual well-being because the Torah is a perfect guide to tell us how to live spiritually and how to elevate ourselves. And for all those women out there who really and truly want to improve themselves spiritually, what would you say to guide them in elevating their souls in the Torah way?
So I read a book called Toward a Meaningful Life by Simon Jacobson a while ago. Do you know it?
Yes, I read the book too. Yes.
Excellent book and really highly recommend. Highly recommend. And his first chapter, I think every time I read it, I actually start crying like a little bit. It makes me emotional. Is about the soul, you know? And he basically talks about how we all have time for so much else. We have time for so many things. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I just don't have time. It's not really about having time. Very often it's about prioritizing the time because we have our phones and we can scroll through our phones for a while, right? So it's not necessarily about time, it's about what we put our head to and what we commit ourselves to. And that isn't to say that we're not all busy and that we are very strapped for time, being mums and, what if you're working, etc. But he speaks about, tending to the soul. And this takes us back to the beginning, which is that I'm a body and I'm a soul. And very often we'll make sure to go out for dinner and feed our soul. We'll go for a jog and we'll feed our body. We'll read a book, but we actually totally forget to neglect our souls. So one of the things, I say is we need to make a soul date. you know,
I like that. Soul date.
like sit with our souls and say, where am I empty? How can I fill this part of me? And as a woman, even though we don't have, to daven 3 times a day, we don't have to pray 3 times a day, and we're not bound by lots of time bound mitzvot, right? But specifically, prayer is one where I feel like it's our superpower. And I
I agree.
believe that we specifically don't have to do it 3 times a day because it's naturally within us. There's very often a prayer on our lips. So I have tried to make it a priority that even through motherhood to try and daven, but I cannot say I daven, excessively or and at different times it kind of, there's more and less. But I really try my hardest to say, even a small amount of formal prayer a day. But I find myself talking to God all the time,
Me too.
and
Hmm.
that is our superpower. Talk to him, talk to him, talk to him. Have your Psalms, have your Tehillim, know one or two off by heart. You're feeling stressed, you're feeling anxious, you're not sure, just say it. He's listening to you. And just talking in whatever language you speak. So that's my way of kind of, looking after my soul, which is really our soul is just about connecting to God.
Right.
Um, so really, it's literally just about scheduling things into your diary. And I will say that I do kind of pursue it. I really try to make learning groups to, learn from other people, to if it's a podcast that inspires me, I have to write like a small little note. It's called the Rebbetzins note. So every time I do that, I'm like, oh, that's the parsha of the week. um but even just today, I messaged a friend and I was like, let's just set up like a little book club, like a 15-minute Zoom where we all go through a spiritual book, something about something to do with, growth, etc. And let's, just make a time to just do that. And she was like, oh, it's such a good idea. Anyway, whether it will happen or not, I'm not sure. But it was like the first stages of my soul kind of, stirring and be like, I need something more. So yeah, I think everyone needs to know themselves and different things work for different people. But it's just about saying, when was the last time I gave my soul some time? When was the last time I gave my spirituality some time, some real time? The same way that I booked in a massage or I, had my favorite chocolate or whatever it is.
Right. It's totally,
So,
and I love that concept, and I love what you said about the like that you messaged your friend about learning because I wanted to say something. I have a partner in Torah. I don't know if they have that in England, but
ooh,
they have
yeah.
this organization for people who don't know about it. There's an organization. It's literally
Mm,
called Partners in Torah, and they match you up with somebody, and you learn with somebody. So I've been learning with my partner in Torah for almost 13 years now with the same person,
wow.
and we learn
That is amazing.
it's yes, yes, it really is. And we learn a book called, well, we've learned several books, but right now we're doing a book called Twersky on Humash. That's the name of the book. It's written by Avraham
Mm,
Twersky, Twersky on Humash,
wow.
and it's written on in short little chapters, like maybe even like one page, maybe even less than a page for like a section. And we read it. Either she reads it or I read it, and then we discuss it. So it could be perfect for this kind of 15-minute group that you want to do.
That sounds amazing. And yeah,
Yeah.
this is the thing. I think very often we get overexcited. So, you listen to this, you're like, okay, I'm going to learn 4 times a week, every single day. I'm going to make it like that's never going to happen. That's just never going to happen. So, whenever we take something upon ourselves, we need to make it something that's actually realistic.
Right.
And I'd say if you have a grand idea, cut it in half again, and maybe even cut it in half again.
Right.
you know,
Right.
make it something that is so manageable that you can do it, that you'll feel proud of yourself, and that then that feeling will create, a feeling wanting to do more if you can possibly manage. But I'd say any kind of time is so important,
Right,
you
exactly.
know?
It doesn't have to be an hour. I mean, I love that. I love the 15-minute
Yeah.
block thing. And I even love listening to podcasts. You can't sometimes a podcast is an hour long and my friends they'll listen 15-minute increments, 15-minute increments. Me too, just to get the gist and then you can go back to it again whenever you have time. And the talking to Hashem, I think it's so key. And I just want to clarify because maybe not everybody like fully understands. So there's davening from a sitter, from a prayer book where it's really formal prayer and it's
Hmm.
written down for you and you're praying that. But I think what you and I are talking about is more of hitbodedut, like more of just talking to Hashem in our own words.
Hmm.
And literally, you can do it in your car, in your kitchen, while you're folding laundry, while you're taking a walk, and you just talk. It's stream of consciousness. It's basically what you're thinking, it comes out, and it kind of like flows and flows and flows. And before you know it, like you're getting everything out of your head. You're getting it out. And who's listening? Like there's nobody with you. You're by yourself, but there is somebody listening. It's Hashem is listening, and it's very, very powerful.
Yeah. And I think it's like everything, the more you do it, the more you realize its benefits.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like, it's just weird. How can I talk to him? Try it.
A
It
hundred percent.
works. It's weird, but it works. And he doesn't exactly answer because, Hashem can't answer you in a physical sense, but he does answer you. And very often, you could just say, like, I just need something. What are you know what I'm talking about? So
Yes.
literally throughout your day, we